Welcome back to the Band Guide, where we use GarageBand to create professional sounding music. I'm your band guy, Colin, and today I want to share with you my top 5 vocal effects that I use all the time to create professional sounding vocals. And you can do all of these inside GarageBand completely free. But before we jump into that, I just want to remind you that effects are just one step in the 6 steps of a professional mix. Effects are important, but they're just one piece in the puzzle, and I want to give you something to help you get a more professional sounding mix in GarageBand. I've put together a completely free 6-step checklist to a pro mix in GarageBand. There's 6 steps, 6 things that all professional mixes have, and this guide will walk through exactly how you can do all of them inside GarageBand completely free. So be sure to grab that from the description below, but let's go ahead and dive into my top 5 vocal effects. Alright, my number 1 most used vocal effect is definitely reverb. Reverb is basically just adding 3-dimensional character to your source, to your vocal. It's putting it into a space so it doesn't just sound like a clean, dry, recorded vocal in your bedroom. So if we listen to this vocal now, this is a nice clean recording. We've EQ'd it, we've compressed it. This is what it sounded like.
I'm on my way.
We use reverb to add some space around that.
I'm on my way.
And it just sounds a little bit more epic. It just takes up a little bit more space. And it creates a nice, natural sound. Now, what we're doing here, if you hit B, you bring up the Smart Control window in GarageBand. And what you get here is access to 3 different reverbs. You have an ambience, which is like a short reverb, a reverb knob over here, which is kind of a medium to long reverb, and then we have our master reverb. Now, what I like to do is keep my master reverb as my vocal reverb, so it can be perfectly tailored for the lead vocal sound, or whatever I want my lead vocal sound to sound like. Now, it's important to know that these are not plugins going onto your track. So you'll hear it anytime you have your track soloed, but there's no reverb plugin on this track. This is actually taking your lead vocal and it's sending it over to another reverb. What's nice to know about this is if you perfectly tailor this reverb sound to your lead vocal, but then you have a different vocal track for your verses or whatnot, you could still send it this exact reverb and it would still be tailored to that reverb sound. So let's go into that reverb sound to perfect it. If we hit Edit, Echo, and Reverb Settings, we just need to make sure that we have the master reverb selected. These are the other 2 reverbs, so we want to make sure we're on master reverb. And then you can pull up a preset, or you can just tweak these settings over here to be what you want them to be. So if I really exaggerate this here,
I'm on my way.
what I can do is I can set it to be super long.
I'm on my way.
So that's kind of more of like an actual effect, right? That's kind of making it unrealistically large, but a really cool effect. We also can change the color. This is going to kind of be how it's EQ'd. Is it really bright or is it really dark? So really bright is going to sound like this.
I'm on my way.
The reverb doesn't have any sort of low-end frequencies in it. And if I make it really dark, it's going to sound...
On my way.
The reverb sounds like it's underwater. And then we have volume. So let's say you've mixed 5 vocals at different points into this lead vocal reverb, this master reverb, and you realize there's just too much reverb overall. It's just too much. As opposed to going into each individual track and turning down their reverb send, what you can do is you can turn down the volume here. So
I'm on my way.
Vice versa, if you need a little bit more, you can bring it up here.
I'm on my way.
So you can tailor all this to be the perfect setting for your reverb on your lead vocal track. One final note about vocal reverb is that typically a slightly darker color is going to sound more natural. So taking this color knob and just turning it down and cutting out some of those high-end frequencies lets this reverb sit just below the lead vocal and kind of enhance it a little bit. My second most used vocal effect is definitely a slapback delay. This is just a super fast delay that just kind of enhances the lead vocal a little bit, supports it a little bit. So listen to this lead vocal and I'll bring in this slapback and notice how it just kind of enhances the vocal sound. You don't necessarily notice it a lot, but it just kind of adds a little bit of body around the lead vocal sound.
I'm on my way. My way. I'm
if I take it away,
on my way.
Right? It's subtle, but it definitely adds to that lead vocal sound. Now, to create this, all I've done is I've duplicated the lead vocal track. So I take Option, click, and drag on the lead vocal track, and now I have all of the settings copied over. So this has created a complete duplicate. Now you want to turn off your effects on this track because this is going to be just the slapback delay on this track. So I'll go and delete that. And this is that track. What I've done here, no effects are on it. I've kept all the same EQ and compression, but I've added a stereo delay at the end. I like the stereo delay because it just gives me flexibility if I want it to be mono or stereo, left and right, or just up the middle. So in this case, I'll exaggerate a little bit. You want to set your mix to 100% on both the left and right so that it's only the slapback delay on this channel. And listen to it with your lead vocal.
I'm on my way.
And then you want to set as fast as you can go on both your right and your left ears. And then if I wanted to have a little bit of variance between the left and right ears, I'll set the deviation so that they're a little bit different.
I'm on my...
And that makes the left and right ears just happen at slightly different times so that I hear it in both ears. And then keep the feedback the same, that's all fine. And then a pro tip here is set your high and low cut to filter out. So this is going to EQ out and kind of give it a telephone effect. If we listen to this track on its own,
I'm on my way.
it kind of focuses in that really the intelligible part of the vocals, what you really hear in the vocal sound, and it kind of reinforces those a little bit. If we listen to that in solo, what I've done is gone from this vocal sound
I'm on my way. My way. I'm on.
and this allows it to not compete with the lead vocal quite as much. Okay, so then we just take that with the lead vocal, and we just blend it up until it sounds right to us.
I'm on my way. My way.
My tip with all these effects is get it to where you hear it and then scale it back just a little bit. A lot of this is more about perceiving it than it is hearing it. So if we listen to it in the context of the mix,
I'm on my way. My way.
helps support that lead vocal just a little bit. My third most used vocal effect is a long timed delay. These are just delays that are timed in sync with the music. I love this effect. It's just a cool effect. So let's listen to it on this lead vocal here. What I've done is I've used the master echo to do this in this example. And this is super easy to do. You just bring up the master echo and then hit edit echo and reverb settings. Make sure you have master echo selected. And then just find something that's in the timing that you want and then tweak it to be roughly what you want it to be. So let's say this half note flutter. I know I don't want this many repeats. Repeats are how many times the delay happens, so we'll scale that back. And I like a darker one, so let's keep it somewhere around here. And let's listen to this with this vocal.
And I'm losing track of all the nights and days.
So a nice mono long delay sounds really cool. If we listen to it in the context of the mix here,
And I'm losing track of all the nights.
right? And that's an effect. Now, typically the way I do this is I set it till it's loud enough and then I scale it back. So it's just kind of tucked in on the in-between sections. I like this because it cues our ears like, hey, listen to that vocal next time it starts singing after it finishes a phrase. So that's one way to do it. That's probably not my favorite way to do it. My favorite way is similar to what we just did with the slapback delay. We duplicate our track. So this is just our lead vocal, and we set a stereo delay on it after the EQ and compression. And what we get with this is just more control over it. So this is our long stereo delay plugin, and what I've done with this example is I've actually done slightly different timings between the left and right ear, which gives me a ping pong delay effect. So listen to that delay here.
And I'm losing track of all the nights and days.
So what we get with this plugin is just a little bit more control over the effects as opposed to doing it just with that master echo. We don't get a lot of control. Here we can set all sorts of parameters to really be the sound that we want it to be. Listening to it with the lead vocal.
And I'm losing track of all the nights.
Really cool effect. And then we can also do things like add a distortion after we want it to be a little bit distorted. Again, I have it filtered a lot, so I like this plugin because I can set the high cut to cut out a lot of the high end frequencies and the low, so it's just a really filtered sound, which allows this delay to fit into a certain sonic space a little bit differently than everything else. And it doesn't sound like it's just the vocal repeating and repeating. So if we listen to it in the context of the mix, just kind of scale it up to where we like it.
And I'm losing track of all nights and days. I'm on my way.
Subtle, right? But it's just helping it fill a little bit more sonic space and add interest. It just sounds cool. My fourth most used vocal effect is a delay throw. A delay throw is basically just taking a single word or a single phrase and having it delay at a very specific time. So listen to this example in this pre-chorus here.
Don't look, don't look, don't look now.
So we didn't just want to take the don't look, don't look, don't look now and have it repeat and repeat and repeat. We just want to take that one phrase and really highlight it and make it effect. I think of these kind of as a part in and of themselves a lot of times. Now to create this, we're going to make a whole new track. So we're going to duplicate our vocal track, and then we're going to take the phrase that we want to repeat. So we want that don't look. So I'll go in here and I'll trim right there, trim at the end of the phrase, and then I'll option drag it down to copy it. And then I'll drag this back so that it doesn't have any sort of cuts in it. And then we're just going to move this to where we want it to be. Now, what I recommend is cutting it right on the beat so that you know it's right on the beat with the vocal. And then if you need a little bit more of the phrase. So if we listen to this in solo here,
Don't look,
it kind of cuts off the start of that D.
don't look,
And I want to have that start in, so I'm going to drag it back just a little bit
don't look,
so that we have that full sound. And then what we're going to do, we've dragged it to here.
look now,
We'll mute our one that we've already created.
look now, don't look.
And then what I can do is I can just do whatever I want on this. So I can make this crazy. So in the one that we've already done, we have a lot of effects on here. So I have a sample delay that gives it just a little bit of left and right stereo spread.
Don't look,
I have a longer delay here, or I have a chorus on here that gives it kind of an affected sound.
don't look,
I have a space designer. This is just adding a little bit of reverb sound to it. I then have EQ'd it a lot, and then I finally put it into another delay to repeat. So here, the left and right mix are still set at 30%. So we're getting the original signal and then the delays as well.
don't look, don't look,
And you mix that into the song, and you get this really interesting...
don't look now.
That's cool, right? My fifth most used vocal effect is a guitar amp. I just love the sound of a vocal running through a guitar amp. It sounds super cool, and it's super easy to do inside GarageBand. So I typically don't do this for the entire song. It might be right for your entire song, but I typically just use it in a certain part or certain parts throughout the song. So in this example, when we hit this bridge, we just want the vocal to sound totally different. So check it out. Pretty cool, right? So to make this specific effect in GarageBand is super easy. So all I've done is I've run my vocals through an amp designer, and I spent a while playing around different amp combinations until I had the exact right settings that I wanted. And in this case, I actually wanted a little bit of reverb running through the amp. So we have the vocals here. I wanted a little bit of that kind of metallic guitar amp reverb sound. And then I just played around with these settings in the context of the mix until it was sounding the way I wanted it to. I found the right amp combination. I played around with the microphone placement. Very similar to how I would with the guitar amp for a guitar, but in this case just for the vocals. And then I also went ahead and added some of the other effects. I did a little bit of the master echo, the long time delay, and a lot, literally as much as I could do, of this master reverb. So there's a lot of reverb on it, a lot of this master echo, and it just makes it sound enormous. Whereas if we had none of these effects on here, it would just be really out of place sounding in this section of the song. I mean, that's just kind of sad, right? Put everything else on it, it sounds awesome. Super cool. So that's my fifth most used effect. I love it. Now, one final thing to mention is that not every effect is necessarily going to be right for every single moment in the song. That doesn't mean it doesn't work in your song, but you might want to cater it, and probably should cater it, to the different sections in your song. So obviously the delay throws and the vocals through guitar amps, those are going to be for more specific moments. But even our slap delay, our long time delay, our vocal reverb, they might work well in one section and not work as well in another section. And we should be making it perfect for each individual section. So for example here, let's look at this first verse and notice how the long time delay just doesn't really work particularly well in this first verse.
I was nobody's brilliant child, but I'm the oldest living son.
Now, in some songs, that long delay is like perfect in the verse. That's actually where I want it more than anything. Or I want a different type of long delay in that verse, and I might set up a different long delay for that part of the verse. But in this, it's just not really working. Now, there's two ways that we can address this. If it's kind of working, but it's just too loud, we could automate the volume. If it's on its own track, that's really easy to do. We can just automate the actual volume here of this track. Just turn it down for this section, turn it back up in the chorus. Or in this case, I just don't think it's working. So I could just go in, since it's on its own track, and Command T and Command T over here, and then just delete this. And then now,
I was nobody's brilliant child, but
it's not there anymore. So, but let's say we like this amount of reverb in the chorus, but we don't like this amount of reverb in the verse. Well, I could go in here and hit A, and I can go to my reverb track, and I can actually automate it down for this section. So I could put in my little points here, and I could just bring this section down.
I'm the oldest living son.
So there's less or even no reverb. So if you're using those types of effects, you can see here that we're automating the master reverb effect here. We can do that in different ways. Another example of this is in the bridge of the song. These drums should just be enormous, right? So a huge amount of reverb here, but that reverb wouldn't fit at other points in the song. So what I've done, if you look at my automation, is I've just gone to this reverb actually, and I've automated it so the moment it gets to this bridge, this knob turns way up. And I've catered this reverb sound to be the exact right reverb sound for those drums. And so I'm using that reverb for those drums to make them just sound enormous. So you should tailor these to different points in your song depending on what you're doing. My final point is that you want to tailor these effects to your song. Not all of these effects are going to be right for every single song. I happen to use all 5 of these effects in this song, but I often don't use all 5 of these effects in every song I'm working on. I might only use 1 or 2 or 3 of them in other songs. So keep that in mind. Try them all out, get familiar with them, but then tailor them to your song and what you think will be best suited for your song. And finally, as I mentioned before, effects are only one step in the 6 steps of mixing. And you need to have all 6 steps to create professional sounding mixes. And you can do that inside GarageBand. I've put together a 6-step checklist to help you get more professional sounding mixes inside GarageBand completely free. So be sure to grab that from the link in the description below. Before we go, I always want to hear from you. What is your favorite effect on vocals? Let me know in the comments. If this video was helpful, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next week with another video.
one thing at a time, I can